I want to say a word about goodbyes and hellos in an international church because they happen a lot. And some of us are more affected by that than others. Happens to some of us, we get close to people, and those feelings of saying goodbye and just seem to happen over and over because some of us stay here. Some of us are here for the longer term. But some people just come for a shorter time. You know, they're here for a couple of months, or they're here for 6 months, or they're here for a year, or they're here for 2 years, and then they go. And it can make us feel like, some people can feel like, I get tired of saying goodbye, so it makes me less anxious to want to welcome people into my life. It's harder, it becomes harder to embrace people and welcome them in. I want to push back against that tonight and just for a few minutes have you think about it from the Bible's perspective and also from a practical perspective, because I want to say that's we can have a different perspective as Christians, and especially in our church where it does happen from time to time that we have to say goodbye to people, because we also get to welcome people as they come to Taichung and come to be a part of our fellowship. The Apostle Paul moved around quite a bit. We saw that as we walked through the book of Acts. Paul was moving from church to church and occasionally would stay a little bit longer at one church, particularly in Ephesus. He was there for, we know, over 3 years. But he moved rather frequently. But he didn't let that stop him from becoming close to the people that he was around. He spent time with people. He invested his life into the people that he was with. And he viewed that as a particular treasure from God. And I think that's the way that we have to look at the relationships that God brings into our life in this international church, in TIF. That as God brings people to us, that we view them as treasures, because they are. Number one, they're God's creation. They're God's gifts. And number two, they bring the giftedness that God has given them into our fellowship to serve for a time. So we need to welcome them in, and we need to welcome them closely, and we need to embrace them as our close friends. It doesn't mean that everybody can be best friends with everybody, but we can all connect to somebody. But on the flip side of that, people will go. People will be here for a shorter period of time, and people will leave us. And what do we do with that emotion? What do we do with that feeling? It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad as people leave. I'm thinking about some of you that I already know who are leaving a little bit later in the year, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad that Blaze is leaving. He's been one of my closest friends here. On the flip side, let me share something with you that the Lord brought to my mind this week, because I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, all of us are a little bit like Legos. Do you know what a Lego is? A Lego is a block, and on that block there's a certain number of connectors that you can hook it to other blocks. And some people are like the big flat piece of Lego, and you've got 20 or 30 connectors. And it's really easy for you to connect to a lot of people, right? But some of us are more like the 2 or the 4 or the 6 piece block. And it's harder for you to connect to a lot of people. It's easy for you to connect to 2 people or 4 people or 6 people, and you feel very close to them. The danger is, here's the danger, is you get those 6 connections and then you never make room for anybody else. You never have any more connections other than you get 6 and you're happy. You don't want any more connections. So the beauty of the international church is you get forced into new connections. God pulls the Legos apart occasionally and makes room for us to make new connections. He shuffles it all up. And he makes it so that every so often we have room for the new people who come because the older people leave. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, because I've been in churches in the past where everybody was like a Lego and everybody made their connections, and then they didn't have any room for anybody else. And a new person would come in and had empty connections. They were running around going, "Oh, can I stick on you? Oh, no room. Can I stick on you? Oh, no room. Can I stick on you? Oh, no room." And after you do that 3 or 4 times, you know what you do? You walk back out the back door because nobody has any room for you. And I think here at TIF, one of the beautiful pieces that happens to us, one of the beautiful things that happens to us is we get forced by God's providence in moving people around to make room for new people. So let's look at the comings and goings of people in our midst as God's providential work to keep our church fresh, to keep it new, to keep it open, as God's work goes on. You know what? We have new people here tonight. It's their first time here. So Blaze is leaving, and tonight we have new people here, and we have connections now that are open. So we need to stick those people on. Okay?